Hello, 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 all. Hello, hello, hello. Share this link. I'm getting ready to share this link now. Um, this is my first time going live, people, so just bear with me. Usually, Baran.
Hello, 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 all. Hello, hello, hello.
Back to the meeting. Okay, so I know that I said I was going to do something, and this is Sister E. I said I was going to be doing something in the middle. Let me share this with my group first. Hold on. Let me share this because if I don't share this with them, it's going to go down. Hold on. 1 second. I don't have a mediator, someone to help me. So bear with me. But share this link before I get started. Because the purpose of this is I kind of want to address
in the middle. Let me share this with my group first. Hold on. Let me share.
Because I want to kind of address some things that I've heard through the grapevine. A few things that I've heard from a couple of my peers about an upcoming show. Well, let me put it like this. I have an upcoming show coming. And one of the main purposes of the show is I wanted to kind of talk through the Georgia Pews. It's been a major debate in the community about the pews. And the reason is, and when I say the Georgia Pews, I'm speaking of the pews that I guess this is the first church, African church. There were some discrepancies that the original wording on the side of these African pews, or on the side of these pews, were, and bear with me, I got a lot of stuff going on. But the big discussion has been that the writing on the side of the pews was an ancient version of Hebrew. But then you have the apologetic community and this is coming from the Israelite community and the Hebrew community that said it's an ancient version of Hebrew by way of Pastor Kelly. But on the other end, you have the apologetic community being faithful to God that just did a YouTube that they're saying is Arabic. Now, what I'm getting ready to do is invite Pastor Kelly to this conversation because I want to make sure that he states his case. But ultimately, it's also one of the things that I'm about to do is have a show. And in this show, we're going to have a discussion about these pews, because these pews that's in this Georgia church has caused so much dialogue in the community of believers that people are trying to figure out what's truth and what's not truth. Now, everybody has a right to their own views. I'm a firm believer in that. Everybody has a right to their own views. But ultimately, I have a belief that if one person has a point, allow the other person to come back with a rebuttal. I don't like one-sided views. So ultimately, after all these conversations and discussions, I heard about a YouTube that was just presented, or was just, I guess, done on, I want to say yesterday, I'm not quite sure, done by Faithful to God, stating that that was untrue. So with that being said, I listened to a little bit of what Faithful to God said, and I kind of stopped it right there, because ultimately, if Faithful to God has a beef or a qualm with what Pastor Kelly is saying, I'm a firm believer that he needs to come up to the forefront and speak to Pastor Kelly. So I hope I explained that well, and everybody let me know if I haven't. I'm pinging Pastor Kelly now to get him to hop on. But ultimately, if he has a beef with what Pastor Kelly is saying, or he doesn't see that Pastor Kelly is not correct, I would say that Faithful to God need to address Pastor Kelly. I've noticed that it's a lot of mudslinging going on in these communities. Everybody's throwing up videos, but nobody wants to talk. If Faithful to God has a problem or concerns about what Pastor Kelly is teaching, I would say come to the conversation that I'm planning to have at the end. I'm shooting for at the end of October, but it looks like I'm gonna have to push it up. Have a conversation and come into this conversation with Pastor Kelly. I also plan to bring in A.O. Green into this conversation. to have a discussion about these pews, because these Georgia pews in Savannah, Georgia, because ultimately I'm talking about the church in Savannah, Georgia, that has it's one of the oldest Black churches in Savannah, Georgia. And I'll let Pastor Kelly speak on it when he gets on the live. But it's one of the oldest Black churches, and on the side of each pew, we have a discrepancy that it's either Arabic or it is in ancient Hebrew, which is a valid conversation, I would say. But I would say this, that we need to have dialogue. It's time out for videos, and it goes for Faithful to God. And it goes for anybody in the community or apologetic community or Israelite community. If you do not have dialogue, you have a one-sided conversation. So it's time out for the one-sided conversations. Let's have real conversation. Let's bring Pastor Kelly to the table. Let's bring Faithful to God to the table, and anybody else that has concerns about these Georgia pews. When I talk of the leadership in these communities, let's sit down and have dialogue, and let's reason, and let's not have one-sided conversations. Let's not throw videos out there and not have a conversation or have reached out to Pastor Kelly and have dialogue with him. So that is the purpose of my upcoming show. And that's the purpose of the conversation now. So let me see where Pastor Kelly is. Hold on. Let me see. And y'all bear with me. This is my first time doing this. So, and if like, share, somebody find Baran so he can like and share within and start a watch party, because I have a very small following and I'm trying to increase my following as well. Let me call him now. Hold on one second. Hey, I got it set up. You ready? Okay. All right. I'll let everybody, because I'm actually on the live now. Okay. Yep, I did. Yep. I sent you the link. Okay. Bye. So while we're waiting on Pastor Kelly, I would say like, share, start watch party. I'm good with whatever. Somebody please let Baran know that I already got started, because he told me to let him know when I got started. But again, it's not trying to create conflict. It's trying to create conversation. I'm a firm believer in we can all come together and reason. And if there are discrepancies, or if there's a lack of understanding, or if you don't agree with someone's views, you're more than welcome to come to Sister E's show, and we can sit down and we can talk. And I will go as far as saying that I will not be the mediator if people are concerned, because I know people will say, oh, Sister E, she's going to always support the Israelites. That's not always the case with me, but I will have a non-bias. Let me say this again, non-bias mediator. For this dialogue, I plan to have Brother Gardis from Baran TV as the mediator. I will ultimately start it, and I'll probably ask questions. But again, Faithful to God, I'm calling you out. If you have a beef with what Pastor Kelly is teaching, come to the forefront. No more of these one-sided conversations coming from the apologetic community and also coming from the Israelite community. It's time for everybody to come to the table and talk. Because my biggest beef, again, with a lot of these videos is everybody is cutting and pasting and adding information and not having a dialogue. It's all concept and beliefs, but nobody's able to back up their concept and belief. I believe that's very one-sided, and that's not fair. So Faithful to God, this is to you. If you feel that Pastor Kelly is teaching in error, come to the table and bring your facts. I plan to have this, and I'm going to give a date. I am going to give a date. My goal is to have this conversation, hopefully by October 19th. Again, Faithful to God. If you have any questions or concerns in reference to what is written on the side of the pews at the Savannah Church, please bring your facts. No more of these one-sided conversations and throwing these YouTubes up and not bringing the person. And what's so horrible about it is they splashed my brother's picture all on the page, and they did not call him or make him aware that he was doing that. Faithful to God, that's not godly, sir. That's definitely not godly. And I come to you as a believer and saying, if you have a problem with what Pastor Kelly is teaching, come to the show. If you don't come to the show, that means that you are a one-sided individual. You are bearing false witness and you're being unfair, and that is not godly. So the video you have that you decided to produce and put my brother on it, and you did not allow him to speak for himself, that's one-sided. And that's something I don't do. I walk in love in everything that I do. I hold my Israelite community accountable as I do the apologetic community accountable, because we're all supposed to correct each other. But when you throw a video out there and you put my brother on it and you do not allow him to speak for himself, it's not fair. So Pastor Kelly, I'm glad that you hopped on. That's the reason for this conversation, is to shed some light into your understanding and your background with this Savannah church.
Well, for starters, I just want to make it clear, these guys, as far as, what's the guy name again?
Faithful.
Faithful to God, and also a guy by the name of Do Dirt. These guys came on my timeline a few months back. Actually, I want to say it was about 3 months ago. And they began to be very rude and disrespectful. They were disrespecting you, Sister E. I still have the video on my timeline. And so they were trying to bait me into a argument. And what I was saying to them, like, hey, let's have a conversation. Let's have a discussion. I don't have time for all the ugliness. And make a long story short, I made it clear to them that I'm not coming on their platform, because basically the way that their platform is set up, that I would have called in, but I would not have been able to talk or anything like that. And so I told them that, hey, I'm going to go live on that Sunday, which I did, for them to chime in if they want to ask me any kind of questions. That time came and they were there in the live feeds, but they did not come on my live. So I just wanted to give clarity on that. Now, in regards to Savannah, Georgia, my great uncle by the name of James Wesley Carr pastored the church down in Savannah, Georgia, the first African Baptist church down in Savannah, Georgia. And the significance in that, and matter of fact, I'm a techie like you are. There's a number of different things that happened down there over the past, I want to say about 13 months, because of the changing of the directors, and not trying to go too far into the political aspect of there. But if you, and I can prove this, if those that are tech savvy, every website that's been up from the time that it goes up, regardless of what they change, is cached, right? So their website, it's been cached for at least 14 to 15 years. They changed it from saying the African cursive, saying that it was a cursive, African dialect of cursive, ancient cursive Hebrew, to, I believe it says Aramaic now. Now, I had a huge discussion with the director there, and it's a fact. No one has ever been able to read what's on those pews. So I raised some questions on that. Why did they change it to Aramaic? And long story short, I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but they made it clear that it was political, and that they've actually been, some of them have been teaching that it's not just Aramaic, it's some saying it's Arabic, right? So let me give you just a brief history of that. When you go to the church down there, you'll see a lot of influence of Ethiopia in there, right? And we do know that there were Ethiopian Hebrews, right? So we know that when you go to this particular church, what makes it so um, how can I put it, stands out so much is the fact that for starters, you see the Hebrew and Hebraic influence of this building, right? This building was built before 1773. It was actually incorporated in 1773. These people, these group of slaves, because at that time, slaves, um, we're led to believe that slaves did not read or write. Slaves were uneducated. But these slaves spoke down here, down in that area, spoke 6 languages. It's a fact. Now, to the Hebraic influence of the place. When you look at the glass like ancient Hebrew as well as modern Hebrew is written from right to left, right? So they have all the 6 major pillars of this church pictures going from right to left. All right. So now, when you start looking at the flooring, when you look at the actual altar, you see the Hebraic influence, but you also see the Ethiopian influence, and we do know that our people came, came from different areas within Africa. That's a fact. We do know that Ethiopia, Hebrews, Hebrew Israelites, I'm using that term for a reason, and I could talk about that another time. But during the law of return, back in the 1980s, to the surprise of the Jewish community as we know them, they did not expect them to come out of nowhere with a Torah, their own Torah and everything, and claim what is called Aliyah, which means, it's the law of return. All right. So bringing it back to where we at with the writings on the pews, I had a discussion with the director because they changed, and I still have the original site. You could go to, you could just search for cache sites. So I'll share the link with you. When you go there, you can look up this site, this URL, and you'll see for at least 10 to 15 years on their page, it said it was ancient cursive Hebrew. And I have the screen prints as well. And other sites, not sites from our own people, but historians made reference to this place and called it cursive Hebrew, right? Now, we do know that Aramaic is a Shemitic language. It's a dialect of Hebrew, but it's not the Hebrew that Christ, the disciples, and during that time, that's not their native language. We know that Arabic comes from the Syriac language, and Arabic did not become a written language until the 6th century, which causes problems with the Quran. Why? Because many believe that the Quran was written in the latter part of the 5th century. So how could the Quran be written in the latter part of the 5th century when Arabic wasn't even a written language at that time? Now, going back to my point, right? What I did was studying the language. Am I still there, Sister Steve? I'm up. I want to make sure I was still there. All right. So the language Ga'az, right, which they call Ge'ez, is a Shemitic language, right? And when you look at Ge'ez and you go to those pews, you will see a combination of Ge'ez for some of the letters as well as cursive Hebrew. You'll see that right there on the pews. And I brought it to the attention of the people down there. Now, when you understand the Shemitic language of Ga'az, it comes from the language called this Sabine or Saba'an. And that language did not have the vowels as we know it. It just had the odd sound associated with every consonant, right? And the same thing with Ga'az or Ge'ez before the 4th century. It tells you in the 4th century when they started modifying the language, adding vowels to it to appease the Europeans, so to speak, that was coming there to learn, to make it more intelligible. That's the term that they use. So getting back to this church here, and what kind of irritates me is when we understand Revelation, we hear about the mark of the beast. We get told about the mark of the beast over and over again. Unfortunately, you have the end time prophecies teach that the mark of the beast is, it's the computer chip being put inside you and all this other stuff. No, when we understand the mark of the beast, it is what validation, feeling like we need to be validated by the enemy, being validated by Satan's system, right? And what we see right now is many of our own brothers and sisters, no matter what we say to them, they still want to debunk who we are. They said, hey, can you prove it with your DNA? All right, well, I wasn't big on doing DNA because I know what my family tradition teaches. But because they pushed on his DNA, I got my DNA, and they came back and said that what? I'm Israel, right? Blood descendant. Now we hear this talk of, well, hey, I'm tired of hearing the DNA, this and that. Now you're hearing talk against DNA.
Yep.
We didn't write it. So we came up with that. And guess what? In my DNA, you see Limba, you see Ethiopian, of course, this says Jews, but Ethiopian Israelites. You see the Igbo. We could go right down the list, and same thing with yours.
Mm-hmm.
So for me is, why are you trying to debunk a place that you don't even know about? Correct. Most of these, I can tell you, 99% of these guys haven't even traveled to this place. And if they talk to the people there, they would express to them that their disagreement with how they change things, all because of what? Not wanting to lose funding.
Correct.
So it's so those writings on those pews is a Shemitic language. It's not Arabic, because if it was so, then how come they still haven't translated? Was able to read it. It's not Aramaic, because if it was Aramaic, whether it's modern or ancient or whatever, how come they still haven't been able to translate it?
Correct.
But they were in awe when I showed some of the letters from the guys in combination with the Shemitic language. Now, I'm not saying that I can read what's on the pews, but I can identify some of those letters. So again, I want to make it clear, if these guys want to have a discussion about it, that's fine. But one thing I don't like is the climate that we're in right now, is that, instead of just saying, hey, let's have a face-to-face talk, or whether let's pick up the phone, everyone has to do this thing where as though they start bad mouthing you, putting your face on things that you never even, I wouldn't have known had you not said it to me.
Yep.
That my picture is on someone's teaching. And technically, if I wanted to go legal on these guys, I can literally take a legal case out on them, because they are defaming my character.
Correct. And someone just said that this wasn't faithful to God, that he just hosted and posted the video. That's the same thing. And that's just like me finding a video of you and posting it and letting you know that I'm posting this video, and bad mouthing your video and not letting you know. I'm held accountable for it. My thing is this: if these guys have a beef with because they went from DNA, they've stopped talking about DNA because I think DNA they're afraid to talk about that. Now they've started talking about the language. They're saying that, and I understand that their goal is to deal with the camps. That's a whole nother conversation, because what they don't realize is, in a lot of cases, we're dealing with the poor teachings of the camps. But right now, what they're trying to say is the language, because I don't speak Hebrew, and I will admit it, I speak English. But I do refer to people like you and others in my community that study the language and say that this is the language. But instead of them reaching out to you and saying, hey, Kelly, I have a beef with your language, because a lot of the people in the apologetic community now are saying the language is incorrect. Instead of reaching out to you and having dialogue like they should do, they're throwing videos out there. Stop throwing videos. Come to the table. Have dialogue. I'm calling them all out, because even though Faithful to God didn't do it, he has been doing it. All of them have been doing it. If you have a problem with the language, come to the table. Have a conversation. But the fear is, if they come to the table and have this dialogue, they will have egg on their face. And they don't want that. And that goes for Faithful to God. That goes for Vocab Malone. That goes for all of them with this whole language thing. Now, granted, again, I don't speak the language, But what I do is build conversation. If you feel that someone is in error, like when I'm in error, you'll call me and say, hey, Sister E, that's not correct. Let's run through the scriptures real quick. Let me explain it to you. But you don't create a YouTube, you don't blast me. But the godly thing is to come to me and have conversation. And that goes for all of them. And it has to stop. If they want to blast you and others like you, like Majors and Pastor Omar, all of them have made a point to do stuff like this. Like they did with you and Pastor Omar when Vocab did that video. They didn't go and talk to you. In fact, Vocab had to come back around and said, I looked at Pastor Omar's page and I was wrong. These guys are not doing their due diligence and reaching out to you and saying, hey, Pastor Kelly, I don't think that what you're saying is correct. Let's have dialogue. If they want to make you, if they want to show that you're not correct, have dialogue. Allow you a chance. Allow you the opportunity to be able to come back with your rebuttal. That's all. That's the thing I'm saying.
And let me just share just a little tidbit here, because one thing I don't do. I don't try to argue with people. Even with terms like Elohim and all those. I don't argue with it. Why? Because for me, at least you're making an effort to get a deeper understanding than just the English transliteration of the text that we have. Because one thing about ancient Greek, as far as Koine Greek, even Greek in the modern Hebrew and ancient Hebrew, they do not have what is called indefinite articles, right? The English language has both definite and indefinite articles. So that makes a world of a difference, even how we understand the text as we read it, right? Mm-hmm. So just a little nugget here with the language that I said about the Sabines, because one thing that we've been institutionalized, especially when we start understanding about the great voweling movement that took place in the 15th century, but God's come from this language, but this language, Sabines, let me just read some of the letters here. Mm-hmm. You would not, it's going to sound like baby talk, right? But here it is. A, ba, ga, da, za, ta, ya, ka, la, ma, sa, sa, ka, ra, wa, za, ha, na, sa, ta, fa. Now notice what you didn't see there. You didn't see a oo sound. You didn't see an e sound, right? You didn't see any of those things. But because we've been pre-programmed, and what I don't like about modern technology and modern things that many of us are coming up with, different systems, what we do is we come up with a theory and then we backdate it to make everything line up with that, right? So I just wanted to give a little nugget about the Sabine language, which is a Shemitic language. Now, as far as what these guys are doing, you know how I am. Yeah. If someone reaches out to me, I'll talk to anyone. Sometimes people think I'm crazy because I'll talk to a plant if it bumped into me. You know what I mean? So, but unfortunately, what we talk about Christ, many of them teach about Christ. Many of our are so to speak banging on the camps, but they are displaying the same behaviors.
Correct.
And I know of some of the people that are watching here, if I posted some of the comments that these guys have posted on my timeline, I am a pastor. And I was nothing but respectable to these guys, but they were being disrespected. What kind of person that follow Christ call themselves do-dirt?
Correct.
And they even said on Divine Prospect, Ron Shields' page, that's basically a dummy account, basically that they use to post insults like that. Mm-hmm. So for me, I'll block you in a heartbeat because I don't want people in our ministry to be subjected to that. Because it's not about hey, I'm not saying that I know it all. None of us know it all, but at the same time, I'm not going to let you disrespect me either.
Correct.
So with that being said, that's why I just wanted to say with the Ethiopians, the Ethiopian Hebrews, why is that significant? Why is this area suddenly now they're trying to change the history of this place?
Correct.
When you understand Timbuktu, With, you know, when they burnt on when the Muslims came in and they began to desecrate everything. It's historically proven that they also burnt up Hebrew manuscripts. Why did they burn up Hebrew manuscripts?
Correct.
How come they don't have microfilm of these Hebrew manuscripts? You know, so again, this is going back with the scriptures. Jeremiah, I believe it's either Jeremiah 34 or 36. No matter how old the book of Jeremiah that we have, it's still not the original.
Yep.
Why? Because the king burnt the rolls. So the Most High told Jeremiah to write it again. He kept burning up the rolls. And we see also in Jeremiah chapter 8 that what? The bones got burnt up. In other words, you know, that one of the insults of the antiquities of the ancient culture is not to be buried, for your bones to lay out exposed and dry up. Right. So that's like that's what we see as being blotted out. But nevertheless, if these guys want to have a discussion, they could reach out to me. Why do we have to sit here and deal with these insults?
Correct.
We get called all kinds of names, moderates, and you know, Christian Hebrews and all this other stuff. It's like, you know what? Why can't we just be called followers of the way? What was the disciples called first in Jerusalem?
Yeah.
We see Christian in Antioch, which is a Roman province. But what were they called in Jerusalem? Now, I'm not bashing those that call themselves Christians. That's not my point of saying that. But why do we have to segment ourselves according to that craziness?
Yeah.
Why can't we just be accepted? Like, hey, look, you know what? They proved who they are. If the DNA says that, that's what it says. How come we're not arguing the Ashkenazis? How come we're not saying anything about the lawsuit that the Ashkenazi community had with 23andMe and many of these DNA places, because they started coming up with their DNA that they're Khazarian. And they started arguing and they won their lawsuit. That's why you don't see in 23andMe, for example, the Jewish results there. Or should I say the Ashkenazi results there? So how come we're not making these arguments to them? Most of them don't believe in Christ, but we get all the arguments. Why? Because this is what going back to the scriptures, it's prophesied in the scriptures. So again, if these guys want to have a discussion, they know how to reach me, but they're not going to disrespect me. They're not going to disrespect you. They're not going to disrespect any of our other brothers and sisters. And last point I want to make about the term apologist. It comes from the Greek word apologia. Apologia, actually, what Peter was talking about, what he was saying is, we all supposed to be what? Prepared to give an answer of hope when we're asked. When someone has a question, we should be able to give an answer of hope. An answer of hope is not insulting people. An answer of hope is not profaning someone's name. Coming up with all kinds of slogans and bywords to basically try to say, hey, look at them over there, but we better than them over there, or over here is better than those over there. So I'm not trying to vent here, but I just wanted to get that out because it insults me and it insults our ancestors, especially when you know how that history of that church was built. You had our ancestors, they made it a point to build this church so that way our brothers and sisters that started moving up north send their children back to this place to know our history. That's fact. That's where you start getting the tradition of sending the children down south for the summer, because they would get educated on the history of our people at this place.
Yeah.
So and then to know that our ancestors, they were working, they was out in the slave fields working 12 to 14 hours, and then at night worked on this place right here. Yeah. And then we got to sit here and hear these insults of them trying to make it something that it's not.
Correct.
So again, whatever they say, whether any one of these guys, no matter what they say, they cannot substantiate it. They have not gone down there. And guess what? I can go down there with them and I can bring my camera in there. They'll tell you I can. Why? Because I am relative of one of the pillars of that place. That's why I'm able to go into the sanctuary and do things that no one else can do. And I could bring them there, and they will tell them that, guess what? They can't tell what that is on those pews.
Yeah.
Even some that's trying to say that it's Arabic or Aramaic and all this other stuff. They make it clear they don't know.
Correct.
But because of that video that I did for Black Lives Matter, they begin an influx of people coming there now wanting to find out about our history. Prior to that, it wasn't, none of us were going there. We weren't even talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
So because they don't want to lose fundings, now they have to what? Do some, change some things to be politically correct per se.
Correct. And that's key, because they've shifted the conversation now to language. And this is why I'm calling them all out. And they love to say, oh, her channel's small, she has no shine. It's certain people on this channel that subscribe that know Faithful to God, that know all these people that are doing this when they come for us about this language thing, when they come for us about this Savannah, Georgia thing. I'm gonna commission everybody that's watching this. Reach out, share, let everybody know that this needs to happen. If they have a beef with anything that Pastor Kelly just said, come to the table. And I will say this, I will not be the mediator for this. The mediator will be Father G. Gardis. Gardis is Catholic. So he's going to be in the middle anyway. He's not going to do anything for the Israelite side, and he's not going to do anything for the apologist side. He's going to be fair. So if they're going to say, oh, sister, he's going to have this, and she's going to be the mediator, she's going to be one-sided. No, I am going to hand Gardis my hosting rights, and I'm allow Gardis to drive it so that everybody can feel like this is fair. So pass word to anybody that has questions or concerns with the language in the church in Savannah, that we are going to plan this for October. Are you game for October 19th, Pastor?
Let me look at the calendar, because I do know I have a couple of things up, but I should be fine. And I will bring some more history about what's the significance of Savannah, Georgia. Not just with the church, but also the history of the area and why the assertive effort has been made to suppress the people of that area. The history of that area. And I will bring some sources, some primary sources, like one I can recite right now, making it clear. Matter of fact, can I just read this real quick?
Come on, read it.
Let me just read it real quick. This is coming from the Oxford University Press, right? Let me just read it real quick. It says, for more than 1,700 years thereafter, Hebrew was comatose, either a sleeping beauty or a walking dead. It served as liturgical and literary language, and occasionally also a lingua franca for Jews of the diaspora, right? But not as a mother tongue. The formation of Israeli, the name I use for the so-called modern Hebrew, this is important, what was facilitated. And this is what it goes on to say here. Let me just read a little bit of this here, a little bit more, all right? Because I'm letting them know that, look, this is not me just making some stuff up. I'm well studied, all right? It says, and at the end of the 19th century, by Eliezer ben Yehuda, school teachers and others to further the Zionist cause. To further what? The Zionist cause. Earlier during the Enlightenment period, of the 1770s and through the 1880s. Now, why is this important? Hebrew was supposed to be a lost language. It was not supposedly rediscovered until 1855 by Eliezer ben Yehuda, which he pieced all of this together. But we have our ancestors down in 1773. What are they doing? They're writing Hebrew.
Right there, that's key.
Like I said, I'm whatever they try to bring to the table, they give me history. Don't give me opinions.
Correct.
I'm going to give you history. I'm just giving you a little bit of this right here. I could go further here. And he would literally say that is what they're calling Hebrew is not Hebrew. It should be called Israeli. Why did he say Israeli? It's a difference between Israel and Israeli. Israeli is, hey, you could be born in Israel right now and be called Israeli. Doesn't mean that you are an Israelite.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? You
That
know,
makes
doesn't mean that you're native, that's your original territory. So this person right here, you know, literally makes it clear that don't even call this stuff a Hebrew language.
Mhm.
And it goes on to say, and like I said, I can pick apart this language in all the talking points of what many would use with primary sources.
Correct.
So
And isn't
why,
that this?
why so why are we even having this argument? Why are we even having this argument?
Because it's a game. It's a game that they're playing, because it's just like calling me American and a Native American American. They were considered to be native to this land. I don't know how much native, but they're considered to be Native American. I came here through another channel. Through my ancestors came here through the transatlantic slave trade. But the indigenous people, it doesn't take away from them being one of the originals coming from this land. And that's a whole nother conversation that we would need to have. But right now, I want these guys to either step to the table and come and talk and have real dialogue, or they get quiet. Because that's what I see a lot going on. I see a lot of mudslinging, and I see a lot of guys coming for, and they come for you, they've come for me, they come for majors, they come for, and what's so crazy is Pastor Omar is the most on their side, and they come for him. There's nothing. The problem is key DNA. Those guys got a beef with DNA. Let's sit down and let's have a conversation with DNA. I've told these guys numerous times my faith, what I believe in, where I stand as far as my faith. They can't get past the DNA. And I asked a friend of mine out of the apologetic community this. I said, if I did not say I was an Israelite by blood and by DNA, and just said I was just basic African American, but said the same things that I normally say, I would be considered to be a part of, or a part of the apologetic community. But because I stand on what I believe in far as my DNA, they have a beef with it. And they gonna do a video like they normally do. They might do one after this to say, Sister E, we ain't got no beef with. No, end of discussion. Let's sit down, let's have dialogue. It's time out for Faithful God doing whatever he wants to do. It's time out for vocab. Because I know I got a friend, his name is Dante Fortson. He's a part of the Israelite community. He's called vocab out numerous times, and they won't say nothing to him. Teyu Ministry, and people don't realize Teyu Ministry is sitting out there, and they believe in the exact same thing. They've been calling all these guys out, saying, if y'all have a beef with what we believe in, let's come to the table and let's have dialogue. Now, again, with these conversations, I want these guys to know Sister E will not be the mediator. I will bring in someone else to be the mediator that is in the middle, so they can be comfortable and you can be comfortable. But again, they are not bringing facts. They're bringing what they think and how they feel. And a lot of us are addressing these things. We're constantly addressing these things. I know Pastor Majors forever, he's gotten to the point where he's just like, I don't even care what they think anymore. But they still coming for us. So what they want to do is silence us. They want us to be quiet. They want us to shut up and just go away. It's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So they got to get past it.
And see, regardless if they want to go there with the language, guess what? It still doesn't change who we are.
Correct.
And if they want to go there about proving who we are, guess what? I'll give them governmental document, a governmental document of saying who we are, if they want to go there. But again, why does it have to be that we have to show validation to our own people? I don't get approached by Caucasians about this. It's from our own people. Hey, show me who you are. Prove to me who you. Wait a minute. Why do we have this spirit? Why do we have this stronghold? Well, because again, when you start understanding meritorious manumission, you start understanding why we're behaving the way that we're behaving, and don't even realize we're trying to save the legacy of our oppressors.
Yeah.
You know, because the meritorious manumission, one of the keys is what? Protecting the slave master, protecting the slave master's property. You know, if there's a revolt being planned, hey, if that slave tell the master that there's a revolt and they snuff it out, guess what? That slave get his freedom. You know, we see that same behavior among our community, and most don't even realize it. See, that's why Peter, and then when the disciples was teaching, the people had to burn up the books. They were caught up in all this mysticism and all those different things. It said they burned up the books and discovered that it was over 50,000 pieces of silver. That's in the book of Acts. The problem is a lot of times, a lot of books that many of us are reading, we take on the spirits of the person that wrote it. Because when you're reading a book, what do? You start trying to what? Visualize what you're reading. Yep. So it sinks in. So when you're reading all of this information, because even for myself, I had to be careful with, studying Judaism, right? Studying the Talmud, studying the Kabbalah, I said study, not practice.
Please say that, because they'll be saying that you study, you practice.
being a pastor in the church, the Most High put on my heart, like, hey, it's a lot of paganism in the church, and most people just don't know. So I went on this mission of what? Studying all these different symbols. And the first thing he had me study was Judaism, study the Kabbalah. And a lot of the stuff that you see that we creatures of habit, we take on habits and not even understanding where they come from, the origins of it. Even with the Hebrew, modern Hebrew, I can prove to you that it has a mystical, many of the definitions you see in the teachings going to take you right back to the Talmud, and it's going to take you right also filled with also what? The Kabbalah, with the understanding, starting with what is called the ideals, and I can explain that.
Yeah.
So again, this is where, for me, it becomes insulting, because why are we having these dialogues? Why do we have to have a public dialogue to embarrass one another? Why can't you just pick up the phone? And many times, some of these guys know, I reached out to them one-on-one, say, hey, let's pick up the phone, let's talk.
Yep, and that's key. And the thing is, these guys, they're making money off of this. Again, I've seen the attacks on you, because my first time coming across you was when Majors had to deal with whatever that guy's name is, when Nephew was saying that you didn't believe in the Trinity, and Majors had to come to say, no, that's not. And when we say Trinity, we're talking about the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, that you did not believe in that. And they were attacking you. For some reason, you are their main attack. And I'm figuring out, the longer I've been around, the more I figure out the reason they attack you the most is because you are one of the few, and I'm not taking away from the rest of the brothers in the Israelite community. I hope they don't think that. But for some reason, because of your knowledge and your skill set, they're trying to tear you down. And they try to quietly tear you down. Again, I did not like how Vocab did it. I didn't like how Nephi did it. I didn't like how none of them do it, because I know you as a person. You have a good heart. You are a good man. You are one of the few elders that I reach out to, and you have blessed me and ministered to me throughout this process, ensuring that I stay in the faith. You always ensure that I stay in the faith, but understand the importance and how my identity is important as well. But you also make sure that I don't make a wrong turn. So with that being said, I know that you are fair in anything you do. And even when we had that dialogue with Faithful to God, you remember, and I'm not going to say his name because they're going to get mad at him, but you remember we had the show, and how Faithful to God kept attacking you, and you couldn't provide a rebuttal, nor could Majors provide a rebuttal, because the way apologetics work for them is they're going to ask you 10 questions. And you got to remember every single 10 questions with 10 scriptures all at one time. And all the scriptures may not have any context with anything that they're saying, but they'll have so many scriptures that you're confused. By the time you get to them, you're like, wait a minute, let's go back to the beginning. In my environment, I'm going to say you cannot come at a person with 20 scriptures and expect for them to answer it. 1 point at a time. Let's deal with this one piece at a time. And if you have a few scriptures to back up your point, that's fine. But none of this street apologists, because that's what they call it, because I did some research on it. It's a game. It's a game that they play. They throw 20 scriptures at you and try to confuse you, and you still don't get anywhere. It ends up being chaotic. It's time out for that. It's going to be clear dialogue. No street apologists or apologetic communication going on. It's going to be dialogue. It's going to allow each person to give their point. So people can get in their feelings, but I tell everybody, pass this live out. It's time out. Faithful to God is the first person that needs to step to the table. Don't step to me, because I'm not the expert. I can talk to you about salvation. And the crazy thing is, when I talk to you about salvation, a majority of the things I say, they line up with what they're saying. But you want to talk to it, come to me. If you want to come to me, say, I want to talk about this. Let me pull my expert into this conversation, and then let's have dialogue. Faithful to God is time out, bruh. It's time for you to either step up and stand and bring your case and let Kelly, and if majors want to be involved, whoever want to be involved in this community and my community, to come together and talk. Let's do this, or either be quiet. Because if they don't respond to this, and if they don't move to this, that means that they are still moving in the spirit of deception and got a one-sided view and only want a one-sided response. That's my whole point. They ain't got nothing else to say. At the end of the day, I can be sister, I can be crazy, I can be heretic. I don't care. Bring your facts, bruh. That goes for Faithful to God, that goes for vocab, that goes for anybody else in the apologetic community that's got a beef with what you're saying and what you're teaching. Come to the table. I'm not calling their credibility out because I don't want them to say, oh, she called my I'm not calling your credibility out. I'm just asking you to state your case based off of the YouTubes that you've done about Pastor Kelly, and I'm even as far as trying to find Pastor Omar. Let's step to the table and let's bring these things to the table and have true dialogue. No more of these street apologist games. It's either bring it to the table, put up or shut up. I'm from the South, and I'm from the dirty South. I believe in, if you got beef, bring it to the table. If you got beef and you trying to throw a rock and hide your hand, you ain't got nothing to say because you ain't real. And that's my whole point. So that's why I want us to have this conversation, because it's time out. Because for some reason, they are pointing directly at you. They're pointing directly at majors. They're pointing directly at me. They're pointing directly at people in our community that are considered to be the ones that are people of the way, because they have a beef with the DNA, not the belief system. Because even when you talk about the law, they're like, oh, the law. We never said follow flesh laws. We said follow the law of the Spirit, because if you don't have the Holy Spirit, you do not understand the laws and the commandments coming from God. That's the only way you can operate, is in the Spirit. But they still want to say laws of Moses. Who gave Moses those laws? The Most High God.
And see, that's one of the issues too, even when we deal with the law. For some reason, this is dealing with theology. The more theology that there's so many theologies out there, but this theology of grace. I remember in seminary, I had to study, take a class called the theology of grace. And to my surprise, many of the so-called theologians, were literally killing each other over the theology of grace. Wait a minute. We're arguing over grace, but I don't like what you have to say, so I'm going to kill you. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? But when we understand the commandments, what are the commandments? The commandments is the covenant. You see that in Exodus chapter 20, but actually in chapter 19, you see what all of Israel gathering at the mountain, washing themselves, becoming holy, so they could hear the voice of the Most High. And when they heard his voice, what did they hear? They heard the commandments, which is the covenant. This was a ceremony that was taking place to actually hand the covenant to them. So when we say the law, when you see the law of Moses, Joshua referred to the law as the law of Moses. That's where you see the first time you see the term law of Moses, but it's also called the law of God or the law of Yah. You see different references to it. So what is the covenant? Well, in that particular scripture where you see the 10 commandments, that word commandment, the actual Hebrew word there is dabar yam. In modern Hebrew, they say it is pronounced dabarim, but it's dabar yam. You see the masculine plural there. So dabar means word, right? Now you put the plural on it, it's what? Words. So we see the commandments are what? The words of the Most High, right? So now tie it into Hamashiach. John 1:1 tells us in the beginning was what? The Word. And the Word was where? It was with God, and the Word was God, or Alahayim, and some would say Elohim, but it's Alahayim, right? But it goes on and tells us that what? Hamashiach is the Word that became flesh. So now, if we know that in Matthew chapter 4 and Luke chapter 4, Hamashiach said, man shall not live by what? Bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yah. Guess what? We can get confirmation from Deuteronomy chapter 8. That's what Hamashiach is quoting, Deuteronomy chapter 8, right? So now, where did the commandments come from? It came out of the mouth of Yah. So now when you say that, when you start speaking against the law, the commandments, the covenant, now we get to understand these guys don't know what covenant is, because Hamashiach is the covenant. He's the living covenant. He's the living word. So if you're teaching against that, you're teaching you're teaching a Eurocentric Christ. If you're teaching against the commandments, you're teaching a Eurocentric Christ, because Hamashiach, according to the scriptures, he taught the law. He told his disciples, think not that I've come to do away with what? The law or the prophets. There he said the law. He didn't say the law of Moses. He said the law or the prophets. He also echoed the same, used that same term in Matthew chapter 22. This time he's saying what? All the law and the prophets will teach you how to what? Love the Most High and what? Love one another.
Yeah.
So I'm saying all that to say, I'm not trying to preach or nothing like that.
No, you're good.
When people are teaching this nonsense that we are not under the law, they really don't understand what they're saying, what they're actually saying, because for some reason, the disconnect is not realizing that the law, those 10 commandments, came directly out of the mouth of Yah. No other people, no other nation has heard the commandments, heard the audible covenant coming out directly out of Yah's mouth. No other people but Israel themselves. And Psalms even says that, hey, the Most High talked with no one else but Israel. Gave his revelation to no one else but Jacob, his descendants, Israel. So again, that's part of the problem. When we say, when people teaching we're not under the law, that tells me they don't understand what it means. They don't even understand what covenant is. So Matthew chapter 5, Hamashiach is teaching with clarity what the covenant is. To put it in the heart, not us just depending on it on stone.
Correct. And I agree with you. And that's something that's a part two of this conversation we're going to have, because that's something that I want to talk about is the laws of God, the 10 commandments alone of God. Because unlike most people in the apologetic community, I don't think that I'm not going to say unlike, I don't think the apologetic community is aware that me, you, Majors, all of us came out of the church. We were all a part of the church. And we saw how lawlessness has gotten the church where they are now. Because if you think about it, Jude said that grace was never meant to be a license for sin. And literally, that's what it's gotten now, to the point that if you say law, you're wrong. People are like, oh, no, you're a law keeper. No, I love God enough to know that I am not going to commit adultery. I love God and my neighbor enough to know that I'm not going to bear false witness. I'm not going to do all these things. I'm going to honor him because I love him. That's why the word of God said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. And when you ask somebody again, what is the commandments that he's speaking of? Oh, he's teaching the commandments of love. Well, what's love then? Tell me what love is. Because if I love my sister, I'm not going, and I'm just going to put it like this. If I love my sister, I'm not going to mess with her husband.
That's right.
If I love my neighbor, I'm not going to bear false witness against him. I'm not going to do those things. I'm going to honor my mother and my father. That's a commandment. So if you tell people that you're no longer bound by the commandments, it's fine for children to cuss their mamas out and their daddies out. Because that's the law of God. My mom used to say that to me all the time. Honor thy mother and thy father. That's a commandment. So when we walk around with this thing of the command, the Israelites teach the law. We teach the law in love. We're saying that if you have the Holy Spirit, it's going to be a quickening. It's going to be a conviction that hits you when you go against God and his word, which is his commandments. When you go against them, you're going to instantly feel a conviction, because the circumcision of the heart is a change. And it's no longer an outward thing, it's an inward thing, and you will see it as it comes out. It's a growth. Right. It's a growth thing. But the thing is, people want to remain in lawless. That's why I'm sitting there saying, y'all don't want to live by the law, because y'all constantly bearing false witness against us. Because the law
Exactly.
will subject you to say you're bearing false witness against your brothers and sisters. But because you don't want to receive, you don't want to say we ain't bound by the law, you're really not bound by the law because you're running in lawlessness. You're bearing false witness. I've had people to say, and I'm not going to say her name because she don't get no shine on here. I've heard her say that I don't believe in Jesus. And I'm sitting here like, what? I ain't never said that. I'm teaching what? I've never taught Antichrist. I came straight from the church. I understand what it means to honor the laws and the commandments from God. I understand that. So people got beef, but they don't want to deal with God right now. They don't want to deal with the fact of because again, you're functioning out of lawlessness. You're bearing false witness. If I was to draw to the fact that I am, because I love Hamashiach, I'm going to follow his commandments, I'm not going to bear false witness with you because I love God enough and I love you as my neighbor enough to say, I don't believe in what Kelly's saying, but let me call him and reason with him. But they don't want to do that because they're functioning out of lawlessness. So again, I'm telling everybody, if you know faithful to God, let them know. Step to the table. Let's have real dialogue. And again, I'm going to say this for the last time because Pastor, I know you got to go to sleep. If you have a beef with him, come to the table. I will not be the mediator. Father G will be the mediator. And what we're going to talk about first is the Savannah Church. I've also reached out to A.O. Green. He's going to be, he also said that he can do it. I don't think Colin can because I think it's some date issues. I'm going to check with him to see if he's good with that. But he's not an expert. He said he's going to get someone to be in the conversation that's an expert to speak on this. So the goal is October 19th. And I'll follow up with everybody to see if October 19th is good. So it's a tentative date, but I will have the final date by the end of the week. And I would say everybody pass it because this is going to be the ground floor to be able to say, come and reason. Come and reason. And if we are wrong in anything, I'm willing to say, okay, I'm wrong. I missed it. But you got to explain to me why I'm wrong.
Well, I will say this. When it comes to that area, no one's going to tell me I'm wrong because this is my family tradition.
Yep.
So regardless of what they try to tell me, I know what my family tradition tells me and what's been handed down. I mean, to the point even I tried to fight against it. You know what I mean? My uncles and relatives telling me that this is our history. It kept trying to get me to get down there. I'm like, I'm brushing it off until I finally went down there about 4 or 5 years ago. Finally went down there after being told that by years on top of years to get down there. So regardless of what any so-called expert wants to say, they're not going to be able to tell you what's on those pews. They can't read it, and that's a fact. And again, if they're going to say that it's Arabic, then read it in Arabic. If you're going to say that it's Aramaic, then read it in Aramaic. If you're going to say whatever, read it to me. Read it to me. Because if that's the case, then they'll be able to read it.
And that's what I think somebody asked that question of, does he know what's on the pews? And I think you did say at the beginning that you know what's some of the words that are on the pews.
Well, I can identify some of the letters, put it that way. I'm not going to say I know the words. I can identify some of the letters. And when I was meeting with one of the staff down there and I pulled out my research and pulled up the letters, his mouth dropped. He literally said to me that I was the first person to ever do that, to come in and show proof. And he said, it makes absolutely perfect sense. Why? Because you see the influence of the Ethiopian culture there. And we do know that Solomon had children in Ethiopia.
Correct.
So why should it be such a shock? Yep. So no matter what anyone will try to say, I can guarantee you they will not be able to read what's on those pews. That's a fact. And no matter what they say.
Yep.
So how is it changed? How has it changed from being an a Hebraic cursive Hebrew language dialect to what they're trying to say is Aramaic, and others are teaching it saying that it's Arabic? Who made the decision if you cannot read it? If it's Aramaic, you should be able to read it, right? So again, that's where that's the question they are going to have to answer. And I would, like I said, and I would show with history why that area is being what suppressed now that we're what more and more starting to hear about this territory. And I'll tie it into another key territory that's from that area that had an influence on another area, and we'll talk about that when on your next presentation. But again, I know for a fact not a single person is going to be able to tell you what is on those pews. I can't hear you, sister. You look like you muted out.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set it up because I just realized I got to go out of town on the 19th. I may have to push it to the 26th, and I want to give these guys enough time. I'm gonna provide the final date by the end of this week, if it's gonna be the 19th or the 26th. Because again, I forgot I got to go out of town on the 18th, and I won't be back in town until something for my daughter, and I won't be back in town until the 20th. So we can plan it for the 26th. So I push the date down to October 26th. I will get somebody to provide me an email address for, and if anybody in this chat know it, an email address for Faithful to God, and ask him to come to the table. I already reached out to A.O. Green. He's willing to come to the table. I think we got you coming to the table. And I don't know if anybody else, I mentioned it to Brett Majors. Major said he might, depending on what his schedule looks like, he might be able to make it. But it's time for us to have this dialogue. And I really wanted to bring you on so we can sit down and you provide your point based off of this YouTube that I saw that kind of like shocked me. I'm like, first and foremost, I'm almost wondering, did they know I was getting ready? Because I did say to a couple of people in the apologetic community that I was getting ready to address the Georgia Pews. And I'm wondering, did Wynn get to Faithful to God, and did Faithful to God hurry up and throw something down? I'm just wondering, because now all of a sudden Georgia Pews and your name came up at the same time when I'm having conversation. But with that being said, Pastor, I know you got to go and get some rest. I know both of us got work in the morning. And what I'll do, like I said, everybody who's watched this, like, share it within the apologetic community, put it in whatever apologetic community that you're a part of. It's time to call these guys out and let them stand on what they believe in and show proof. No more of the speculation, I think, my opinion. Show proof. We show proof. You question our DNA, we show proof. Now it's time for y'all to show proof. And that's all I got to say. So, Pastor, you got anything else you want to say before I end it?
And again, I really appreciate having this dialogue, and I appreciate everyone that's watching. But I want to make it clear, as you pointed out, I believe in Hamashiach, which is transliterates over to Christ. I believe in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So I want to make that clear. And no, it's not from some esoteric approach to it, some mystic. No, I don't believe in any of those things. I'm all about what thus saith the Most High, according to His word. So I want to make it clear. I don't practice any of those things. We don't practice any of those things. But please don't call me a moderate. Please don't call us. Don't put these terms on there, because what we're doing is we're actually perpetuating strongholds among our community. We're taking on the behaviors of the very people that have enslaved our people, and we're still taking that mentality to our own people of putting labels on each other. Mm-hmm. No, we're brothers and sisters. Whether we agree or disagree, they're still my brothers and sisters. Yep. And even though I'm not in Christianity, but I don't rail against Christianity. Mm-hmm. I don't personally go against anyone. Why? Because I'll deal with the doctrine, but I'm not going to try to tear down someone's character. Yes. So regardless of whether we agree or disagree, we still should be able to exhibit the same template that Hamashiach did. Correct. He did not tear up his disciples. He could have easily tore Peter up, mm-hmm. but he displayed love to Peter, even when Peter was cursing and acting crazy in his attempt to deny that he has even a relationship with them. So I just want to say to the people here, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I know some of them may be hearing me for the first time, but again, that's what we believe here. And again, I don't support anything that's beyond the text. You know, so again, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. But I want to make this clear too, that I don't believe it from a Trinitarian doctrine, from the Council of Nicaea. When I say the Council of Nicaea, the Nicene Creed, you know, I believe that the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit has a function. They all are equally important, but each one serves a particular function. So I just want to make that clear.
And they are one in the Father. And I want to emphasize that they are one in the Father. I believe that Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, because the Son says that he's not doing anything outside of what his Father told him to do. And see, what people don't realize is, well, that's another conversation that they're trying to get. Some apologists are slick going into the oneness doctrine. Yeah. And the oneness doctrine is dangerous as well.
And Christ made it clear that he always gave all respect to the Father. And there's one thing that we know that the Father knows that Christ doesn't know. And what is that? When is he coming back?
Yep.
He always repeatedly said that that's something that the Father knows. He even told his own disciples again in Acts, hey, you know, that's something, don't even concern yourself. That's above you. The Father knows those things. So we do know that there's at least one thing that Christ doesn't know that the Father knows. And that's when he's going to return.
And Christ is eternal. He was with the Father at the beginning. The Holy Spirit as well. So let's make that clear, because folks will be like, so Christ was created. No, we believe that Jesus Christ
was not created. He was there from the very beginning.
Correct.
He's not the Archangel Michael. There's none of that Jehovah's Witness stuff or some of the Gnostics teaching, Gnosticism of teaching Christ as a lesser God or created beginning and all that. No, we don't believe in all that. He's there from the very beginning. He has no beginning, created beginning. He's there, one with the Father. The Holy Spirit, one with the Holy Spirit. So again, I appreciate you having me on your platform, and thank you for reaching out and asking me to be part of the discussion. And again, the ultimate thing is to edify, not to tear down and humiliate and try to say, hey, look, I got this person. I got a got you moment. But that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
Show me one scripture of Hamashiach behaving that way.
Correct.
That's not how he behaved. You know, so with that being said, I really appreciate you, Sister Eve, for inviting me on your platform. But yeah, I'm getting ready to take it down because you know how us pastors can go. You know, our 2 more minutes could be another hour and a half.
I know.
So, but again, I want to say peace and blessings to everyone that are tuning in, whether you believe that, you know, believe in or agree with what I agree or disagree. I still appreciate you. It's not going to change my approach to you. I love you because you are my brothers and sisters that are out there. We still family regardless of our disagreements. So again, peace and blessings. I'm going to take it down. And again, I'm not going to be mad at you because you took me away from my Walking Dead. You know what I mean? I was watching Walking Dead. So it's the premiere. So I'm a geek.
Oh man, you missed. I missed it. I gotta get caught up. Okay.
So you took me out of my Walking Dead, so I had to watch it tomorrow. But I'm not gonna hold that against you. But yeah. But again, appreciate it and just be encouraged because the Hamashiach went through more than what we're going through.
Yeah.
You know, and he even told his disciples in the book of John, encouraging them. He said that they were going to be put out of synagogues. They were going to be put out of the place of worship. They were going to be killed and the very people that was going to kill them actually believe that they're doing the will of the Father. So that tells you just how deep the deception is. So you just be encouraged. And like I said, some stuff we just have to brush off and just keep it moving because no person have a heaven and hell to put us in. Correct. You know, we can put us in individually, but the Most High is total control of all of that. So you just keep moving, brush the dust off. You know what I mean? Like Hamashiach said. But love your family, but gotta go. But we'll talk later, all right?
All right, let me get off YouTube. But everybody, thanks for joining us. And again, stay tuned for what's to come. Please like and share, please, and let everybody know something is coming. And tell Faithful to God, come with his. And again, we're not trying to humiliate anybody, but if you got problems or beef, let's come and dialogue. So thanks all.